A black Navy SEAL named Noah Carter was unjustly accused and hauled into a courtroom that never intended to hear his side. The bigoted judge didn't ask questions. She issued commands and publicly forced him to kneel. He said nothing. He complied. Just when it looked like injustice would prevail, a U.S. senator entered the room and everything shifted. What would you have done in his place? Let us know in the comments and stay tuned because what happened next left everyone speechless. It was pouring the morning Noah arrived at the county courthouse, the kind of heavy muffled rain that makes the world feel paused like something's about to break. He didn't bother with an umbrella or hurry. He simply walked through the downpour, head-level coat soaked, as though the weather had no say in his day. He wore civilian clothes on purpose. His uniform would have announced his story before he spoke. Today he came to listen quietly and warily, speaking only when absolutely necessary. Inside, the air was warm but no less charged. The gallery was packed, unusually crowded for a midweek hearing with senior all-white faces who knew one another. No one spoke when he entered. Their silence said everything. Heads tilted, eyes tracked him, eager to confirm their suspicions. In the second row, a man whispered under his breath, "Probably here for assault," and the woman beside him clutched her purse tighter. Noah didn't react. He'd heard worse overseas and he could read lips just fine. The bailiff assigned him a seat in the front row, far from any defense attorney or uniformed ally. No one had called his name. They didn't need to. They saw he was a large, calm black man and judged him immediately. His stillness unsettled them most. No nervous taps, no quick breaths, just the poised calm of a man trained for ambush, waiting for a battle already decided. In their eyes, that made him dangerous. Toward the back, a deputy whispered, "He looks ready for war." Noah heard that too, but remained motionless. He had seen real war where enemies hide behind rubble, not behind courtroom benches. What surprised him was how hostility here was dressed in paperwork, polite nods, and gavel raps, things boot camp hadn't prepared him for. Even before she entered, he felt the judge's presence, as if the building itself changed when she arrived. Judge Patricia Ford was infamous for her rapid rulings and booming reprimands when it came to young black men. Noah was no longer young, and he didn't need any more lessons, but he knew he'd be forced to endure one. Then the door opened, and the assistant district attorney, Stephen Monroe, strode in, sharp gray suit files in hand, already certain of victory. He didn't glance at Noah. He swept the room like a conductor entering a theater rather than a courtroom. His case title rattled off like a declaration of murder, rather than charges: assault, disorderly conduct, interference with law enforcement. He spoke with steady confidence, not from evidence, but from the power of the system wrapped around him, like custom tailoring. Smooth, silent, and wrapped in privilege. "Mr. Carter," the prosecutor continued, pacing deliberately, "is a former serviceman trained to fight and evidently incapable of adjusting to civilian life. The altercation took place outside a neighborhood grocery where Mr. Carter, unprovoked, inserted himself into a dispute between two men hurling threats at a young mother. According to him, Mr. Carter struck first, yet in reality, he arrived before the police disarmed the armed aggressor and calmed the situation without force or weapons. None of that appears in the file. Instead, the prosecutor waived the allegation that Mr. Carter delivered a blow so severe it caused a concussion, then resisted officers by insisting he owed them no explanation. That claim, too, was twisted. He had refused to lie, not out of arrogance, but disbelief. When the police arrived, they scarcely spoke with the frightened woman behind him. Only the broad-shouldered, calm-eyed black man drew their immediate attention. Across the aisle, Mr. Carter's court-appointed lawyer, a pale-faced man in his early 30s, tie askew and briefcase still latched, nodded along to each falsehood, never interrupting or even flinching. He acted as though this was a routine theater he knew would end the same way every time. Mr. Carter sat motionless, jaw clenched and gaze downcast. Yet inside he felt something colder than rage or fear recognition. He had seen this script before, a courtroom full of people pretending ignorance, cloaking injustice in soft voices, tailored suits, and strict procedure. Then he did the unthinkable. He looked up and spoke. "That's not what happened," he said, his tone low but clear, like a man who knows he has nothing to hide. A few spectators turned in surprise, not because of the words, but because he dared to speak. The gavel struck. Judge Ford entered, white, rigid, impassive, and fixed him with a glare over her glasses. "Mr. Carter," she said, "you will speak only when addressed. This is a court of law, not a military outpost. The unspoken meaning was plain. His SEAL training, his uniform, his service, all counted for nothing here. Assistant District Attorney Monroe didn't flinch at the judge's rebuke. He seemed almost pleased, as though the scene was unfolding perfectly. Once again, Mr. Carter felt that familiar weight not from the charges or the crowd, but from the silence that occurs when truth is ushered out before it can speak. Injustice today wears calm voices, spotless suits, and courtroom rituals. It doesn't need to yell, it speaks first and loudest, and for now it had won. But outside the rain had ceased, while inside a storm still raged. For a moment she simply stared at him. Noah Carter with an intensity that seemed to search for even the faintest tremor of fear in his gaze. None appeared, but that didn't stop her. "Mr. Carter," she said, measured and unwavering, "this court orders you to kneel." There was no gasp, no outcry, just a long, heavy silence as if the room itself had been knocked breathless. Noah stayed motionless. He tilted his head slightly, not toward the judge nor the prosecutor, but toward the sea of white faces observing this spectacle like a Sunday matinee. He wasn't seeking sympathy nor rescue. Then he saw the boy. No more than 9 or 10, seated beside his mother at the back. Brown skin, wide eyes, shoulders stiff, the same neighbor's child who once asked him what it meant to be brave. The boy watched him now with puzzled concern, as if a piece of his world had snapped. Noah exhaled once and lowered himself onto one knee, not hastily, not in shame, but with the same controlled precision he once used in combat. Each vertebra aligned, his back straight, chin held high. He did not bow, he simply descended to that single knee before the court, the system, the people, certain they had triumphed. The gavel fell. "Let the record show," the judge said icily. The defendant complied. A subdued rustle ran through the gallery, just the sound of discomfort shifting in wooden seats. But it was audible. "Is this justice?" someone whispered 2 rows up. A woman by the aisle reached for her coat, unable to sit another moment. A deputy at the wall, stiffened hand creeping toward his belt, not out of threat, but bewilderment. No one shouted. The courtroom was unraveling. The prosecutor's smug confidence had thinned. He hadn't planned for this. He expected defiance, outrage, protest, but dignified, wordless compliance unsettled every assumption. Because this wasn't a man broken, this was a man who chose silence, and that choice shrank their power. Noah remained silent, unwavering, though something swirled within him. This wasn't combat, it was colder ceremony. A ritualized humiliation cloaked in legalese, marble pillars, and the authority of a wooden bench. Yet even as the system tried to fold him into submission, to make him shrink or cower, he refused to surrender. He knelt, and the room felt it quietly, like a crack spreading beneath glass. "You may rise," the judge finally commanded, brushing her hand against the bench, as though wiping away a stain. But Noah stayed on that knee just a moment longer, proud, unmoving, until the boy's mother whispered, "Let's go," breaking the spell. She stood, taking her son's hand, and left silently but unmistakably. Others began to stir, uncertain if they should follow. In that instant, the courtroom ceased being merely a forum for law. It became a mirror, and not everyone liked what they saw. You don't simply walk away from war, you carry it in scars and silence no one notices between breaths. For Noah Carter, the heaviest burden wasn't what he lost, but what he obeyed. Long before a judge forced him down on one knee, he had knelt in a place without cameras, on a mission named Ghost Echo, one that was never meant to be spoken of. Quiet, efficient, and decisive, 6 men dropped behind enemy lines with the promise of saving lives. A narrow window, one chance, and Noah was in command. He was young, disciplined, and respected. He'd earned that. What he didn't earn was the order that came from a distant command post, some colonel watching a satellite feed miles away. Flank left, move fast, trust the target shifted. Every muscle in Noah's body screamed to hold, but protocol demanded obedience. He complied. 3 men never returned. One was Lucas Bishop Black, like Noah, a mechanic's son from the next town over, newly married and loyal. Noah carried Lucas's body out alone. He still hears the silence, the heat, the absence of noise. They offered him a Navy Cross afterward. He refused it all, didn't answer calls, didn't respond to the folded letter. Instead, he filed for an early discharge, personal reasons. Nobody argued. Some wounds don't bleed, they only linger. He moved to a quiet southern town where nobody asked questions. He bought an old truck that coughed every morning, but never died, rebuilt the local gym, volunteered at food drives, fixed fences. He never mentioned his Navy past, never corrected anyone who assumed he was just a strong-handed stranger with a useful skill set. The truth wasn't something you shared over coffee. It wasn't something you explained without your voice shaking. He stashed his uniform away, not out of shame, but because it no longer shone. He loved his country, but he'd stopped believing the system could love him back. He had seen how blind obedience could cost lives, how silence was sometimes the safest shield, and how medals couldn't stop a bullet. So when police at the grocery store ignored the white man with the knife and lunged at him, the one who de-escalated the veteran intervened. He didn't argue or shout. The system doesn't fear voices raised, but it trembles at the unflinching calm. In court, they twisted his silence into guilt, blind to the fact that in combat, silence can hold a squad together, carry the names of the fallen, and steel hearts against panic. He traded his medals not because he forgot their meaning, but because he remembered too well every policy that cost lives, every apology sealed under a flag, every salute that arrived a moment too late. The louder the world screamed, the more he understood sometimes the strongest weapon is a man who simply listens long enough to know who's lying. Some silences are louder than gunfire. No one in the courtroom spoke, not the bailiff, not the deputy, who for a moment looked at Noah as if recognizing a neighbor rather than a threat. But the real shift happened in the boy. Jeremiah no longer fidgeted, his shoulders squared, his feet stilled beneath the bench. He watched Noah not with fear, but with the quiet intensity of a child choosing his heroes. And there, kneeling in the aisle, bruised by injustice yet unbowed, Noah Carter became something Jeremiah had never seen in real life, a man taking a stand through silent defiance rather than submission. Some kneel for justice, a disembodied voice might intone. Others kneel so a child never has to. In that instant, it was clear that Noah wasn't merely bearing the weight of injustice, he was carrying it so someone smaller wouldn't have to. Then the state called its key witness Daniel Kerr, a polished 40-something in a crisp suit who swore an oath and lied. He claimed he'd seen Noah strike first act menacingly and make officers feel unsafe. Conveniently, the store's surveillance was down for maintenance, and the one person who filmed an onlooker teen had her phone lost in evidence. No one interrupted Kerr's testimony, not the judge, not the prosecutor, and he spoke without challenge, as if credibility were a matter of skin tone. When Kerr finished, the judge glanced at Noah. "Do you wish to respond?" she asked, more by rote than compassion. Noah lifted his gaze and in a calm, level voice said, "You weren't there." It was neither a question nor a challenge, just fact. The prosecutor leaned in, lips curled in that morning's half-smirk. "And you're no lawyer," he sneered. A ripple of laughter met Noah like a sting. The judge said nothing, only tapped her gavel once. "We will move on," she declared, as if progress meant bypassing truth. No cross-examination followed. Noah's public defender sat in silence, pen-tapping a retreat. In the gallery, people squirmed. The same woman whispered, "That boy saved someone. Why doesn't that matter?" No reply came, perhaps they hadn't heard or didn't want to. But Noah heard it all. His stillness was not surrender, it was survival. Truth doesn't shout, it waits. It arrives quietly in reason, hoping someone powerful listens. But in that courtroom, no one did until the door opened. Footsteps clicked sharply on the wood floor, drawing every eye. Then the room froze. In the doorway stood Senator Caroline West, tall, composed, her immaculate white suit untouched by rain. She carried a single folder, her other hand holding a phone, as if she had just stepped off a secure line. Her presence spoke of finality, not anger. When her gaze met Noah, he blinked once. Judge Ford leaned forward, her voice steady all morning, suddenly wavering. "Senator, this is highly irregular." She didn't reply. Instead, she strode past the prosecutor's table, past the stunned bailiff, past the hushed whispers of the gallery, and laid a navy blue binder stamped, "Classified eyes only," on the judge's bench. "Just read these 2 words," she said. "You need to see this." After a hesitant moment, the judge opened it, and her color drained. Inside were the top-secret records of Operation Ghost Echo, a mission so concealed it barely even existed on Pentagon rosters. There in bold print was his name, commander of that Black Ops team, and proof he'd led a civilian rescue without a single casualty. Twice decorated, one of only 3 SEALs to pull off such an extraction, and on page 4, a signature she recognized her own. 15 years ago in a nameless village, he'd guided her out when her diplomatic mission fell apart. He never sought credit. She never knew his face. Until now. The courtroom froze. The prosecutor paled. "Your Honor, this is irrelevant," he began, but the senator cut him off without raising her voice. "Everything in that file predates your career by a decade. You lack the clearance to question it." Then turning to the spectators, she spoke with quiet authority. "This man has defended our country in the shadows more than most do in broad daylight. You may dislike his presence here. You may misunderstand his silent strength. But when you forced him to kneel, you did not humble him. You shamed yourselves." Not a single soul stirred. Even the gavel lay still. Noah remained seated, cuffed, composed, silent, but for the first time that day, his eyes softened as they met hers. He did not smile or nod. He simply looked human again. The senator's heels clicked once more as she left the room, her message delivered. A whisper rose from the gallery. "Sometimes justice arrives in heels clutching classified papers." The judge stared at the folder as if it had become stone. Finally, the prosecutor broke the hush. "I only prosecuted what I was given." He searched for allies in vacant stares. The senator, arms folded, shook her head. "No," she replied. "You followed your comfort, not the law." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Noah shifted slightly, glancing at the rows of faces. No anger, no accusation, just weary clarity. His silence now felt earned, not defeated. The senator stepped forward, once more close enough for her final words to echo, "Remember this day." Then she turned and walked away, leaving a courtroom forever changed. She stepped forward, voice low, but firm. 15 years ago, this man pulled me out of a kill zone in the dark. No lights, no backup, no promise of thanks. He asked for nothing, not a medal, not a letter, not even my name. Her eyes fell to the floor as she spoke, voice breaking. I kept silent, not from shame, but because he didn't need praise, he needed someone to remember. Judge Ford swallowed, fingers still on the file, and said nothing. The prosecutor's practiced confidence evaporated. Noah didn't need to speak. The truth, finally voiced, filled the room. It hadn't knocked politely or waited for permission. It arrived in heels with a folder and a memory sharper than any accusation. Within hours, the image of Noah kneeling, civilian clothes, head held high, and eyes fixed on the boy who'd written, "You saved my mom," went viral. Retired SEAL commanders, civil rights groups, and everyday Americans shared it. This is America. Behind the shares lay a deeper shift, a cold draft sweeping through walls of denial. Judge Ford never publicly apologized. Instead, she quietly took indefinite leave, citing exhaustion. The prosecutor defended himself in interviews. "I only prosecuted what I was given," but his phone stopped ringing. His name no longer opened doors. Injustice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it simply stops calling you back. Noah declined to sue. "Justice isn't punishment," he said softly. "It's memory." He wanted no courtroom of his own, only for that photograph, that moment of dignified defiance to linger. Because some men are never meant to kneel, and when they do, the world remembers why they shouldn't have had to. The courtroom emptied slowly, but no one rushed to fill the seat where he'd knelt. When a man bows, not in shame but in restraint, then stands again without anger, everyone remembers, not out of curiosity but out of reverence. Just before he left, the same boy who'd slipped him that note stepped forward holding a small, neatly folded flag. "You earned this," the boy said, voice trembling. He handed it to him, and the man accepted it gently as one cradles a promise. An older woman's voice rose from the back. "You made us all stand taller." She didn't seek applause, only to speak what needed saying. In that moment, the courthouse hadn't changed, but something inside everyone did. No speeches, no lawsuits followed, just a quiet return home in a community that finally knew who he was. Some leave no footprints yet. The ground never forgets. True strength isn't loud. It's the echo of dignity long after the silence falls. From this story, the message to us is every individual, no matter how small, can awaken collective conscience through deliberate actions and compelling evidence. Silence under oppression is not a sign of defeat, but a strategy that forces everyone to heed that very quietude. Now we invite you to share your personal perspective. How did you feel witnessing those tense moments? What do you think is the community's role when faced with injustice? At the same time, predict when you believe racism will truly end by 2030, 2050, or even later. Your thoughts and expectations will help build the broader picture of our journey toward an equitable society. Don't hesitate to leave your comments below, because every individual voice matters and can spark change.